Okay, welcome to the 14 color advanced palette. Now this is one that we don't do a tremendous amount with in the program because we do a lot of things with the 6 color palette. But there are some paintings that I do from Couchois and some other French, Louis Ashton Knight, and one I'm going to be doing this study of the of seascapes and stuff, that I will use the 14 color advanced palette, just because a lot of it has some pigments in it that the Impressionists of the late 19th century, early 20th century used. So we expand that, and it has a few other little traditional pigments to it. But a lot of the painters that I work with really like the basic palette, and so do I. This is one reason why I've written over 300 painting lessons with the basic palette, and I've written maybe a dozen painting ones with the advanced palette. So I really prefer the basic palette because I feel I get better harmony on it. But so you have your basic palette out here, okay, that we have shown so far. Now what I'm going to do is expand the basic palette here out into the to the advanced palette. So now you can see we have a whole bunch more colors. There are 14 colors total. We make a couple of different sets in the Heritage line too, if you're looking at getting the Heritage line. We have a 19 color set, which is our pure pigment line of those, and a 26 color set, which is the pure pigment line. There's sets that that I will use that are specific colors that I will teach for something. For example, I did a painting called Serene Waters, and Serene Waters we used a very specific pigment called phthalo green yellow. Those ones are to teach you about that very specific. It's a pigment that is very versatile on the green side of the color wheel, so it's very easy to get all different kinds of greens with it, because it is a very powerful green, and in combination with Hansa and phthalo, it gives you a spectrum of greens that is wider than just a mix of Hansa and phthalo is going to give you, just because you can step it out a little bit further. And so that's one reason why an artist will expand their pigments into other things. So, but you have to look at it. If you're an artist, you have to look at, what am I going to do? You know that you get your best harmony and your prettiest paintings by reducing the amount of colors you use. By squirting out all of these colors out here, you actually create a nightmare. You create what we call a color confusion. And Rembrandt even said that if you start getting so many colors out there, the eye gets confused in the painting as opposed to seeing harmony. So you really want to limit it. You really want to limit it down. But there's some specific pigments that you can put out that really help you. And I've never really used any more than 14 in a lot of my paintings. First, let's start up here by our reds. The one addition that I make into that is a pigment that became a very popular painting pigment especially in the latter part of the 19th century, part of 20th century, with some of the French Impressionists too. And it's a pigment that's very close to what we call brown matter. This is a very toned reddish color. It's a powerful color, and it has a good, not totally transparent, but a good semi-transparent to it. And since it is a toned red, it would go right in here. Now, there's entire lessons that I do on working on, how to use brown matter. And basically what brown matter will be, what it ends up being, is a nice shortcut pigment for you in a painting. And so if I take my red here, and I want this red to head just a little bit more toned, maybe towards red violet, but not as much as this one. The brown matter in here works very, very well. It gets it right in here, and it's a beautiful glazing color for that. It's just an all-around, just a beautiful red to sit as an intermediate red between these two guys here, between this right in here and here. Takes it more toned. So you can very quickly set up a bright highlight, a mid-tone area, and a shadow cool tone on your painting. Very nice, very fast. You know that you go highlight here, you go mid-tone here, and you go shadow tone here. Very quickly right through your painting. And so that's one reason why they have it there. And it became a very popular pigment in, like I say, with the Impressionists. So if you're going to be doing a painting that's really heavy on reds, you might consider using the brown matter into that area. And again, as I set up that color, what I'll do is I just add a little bit of extender into that here, and then mix it up into here. Now you can create all the other kinds of reds. There's, you can put out a more toned red in here, right into this area if you want. But the big thing about putting out the palette like this is to try to find some medium tones or how you would like to paint. We call this, and this is the most important part of it, we call these benchmark colors, or what we call shortcut colors. And in other words, if you're a mixer, I'm a mixer. I love to mix, but I love to brush mix. I don't like to palette knife mix. I hate that. I love to brush mix paint. I love to make my eye let it change. But if I'm also a production painter. What it means is I'm a quick painter. I paint for a living, which means I have to paint very, very quickly. And so I will use what we call benchmarks or shortcut colors to get at an effect that I know sits right between those. So if I go boom to here, this saves me a mix between these two to try to get that color here. Because to try to make this particular tone here, I'm going to take this one plus a little bit of my base brown. So I can get it very quickly, just have that one there. Do I need to create any more than that? No, that's about as much as that. Those 3 pigments there are about as much as I'd ever see on the red side of the wheel. I mean, I don't need any more than that. And I can get it very easily from the 2. Like I said, I don't use these very often, but I do use them as a benchmark. And what's your road? That's your choice. Okay, that's your choice. I much prefer to go to the red violet. But brown matter is a pretty color. And it's one that if you want to try it, it sits. And I use it this way. I use it as an intermediate between this to my red violets. And it is a beautiful color that way. And then, so let's continue on. So we have that brown matter. We have 2 more here that we'll put up. So we'll put that brown matter right up here with these guys. Get these out of the way. We have 2 more. Let's go around this way to our yellows. Okay. Now our yellows, as we go around, you have most popular, of course, we have is our Hansa. Hansa is very, very popular. 2 of your oldest painting colors of yellows, and they go all the way back into the 16th century too, some of them, is your yellow oxide and your raw sienna. They are more toned here, and they will go, here's your yellow oxide, and here is your raw sienna. And the only reason why we add them here in this particular palette is, again, they're shortcut colors. They are colors that can be made from within the palette. They can be made, you saw those colors in the 6-color one. You can make them very easy in the 6-color one. But, again, they're shortcut. You can squirt them out and then paint with them. And why would you do it? Well, it's because so many artists use yellow oxide and raw sienna. And sometimes as a mixer, you feel better if you have them out there. Is yellow oxide really kind of necessary? You got to really, if you take your Hansa yellow here and you take your raw sienna here, okay, and you mix these 2 together here, just like this, you really do get the yellow oxide pigment, So it's kind of like, yeah, do I need yellow oxide on there? Some artists will feel a little more secure with the yellow oxide. It's there, so we add that in there. Do you need it? As a matter of, for myself, it's one when I did a lot of rose mowing and I was a younger artist, I felt like I needed it a lot. And then as I moved into Painted Simply, now I really like my base yellow and my Hansa yellow combinations for what I paint. I get much prettier flowers, much prettier rose mulling, much prettier control. The one thing is about the yellow oxide, it's an oxide pigment. It is an opaque pigment. It's an opaque color. If I take, whereas this one that's right here is a semi-transparent, and this one is a semi-transparent. And if I take those semi-transparent colors and I mix them together, my yellow won't be quite as opaque as my yellow oxide there because they're 2 semi-transparent pigments. So if you're going to do a lot of yellow oxide painting, say on a dark background, yellow color painting on a dark background, you may consider putting out the yellow oxide pigment because it is an oxide, it is very opaque, and it'll give you 1 coat coverage, whereas the mix here, because the pigments are semi-transparent, they won't give you completely complete coverage right away, real fast. So that's something to consider. In your painting is how you're going to be using your pigment. That's something to consider. But again, you put those out. If that was what you want to have out there, you put those out. If I do have those out, and then I just mix up the extender into them here, so that those all just mix up just like that. And if you if you do have them all mixed out here, though, you know that you can make this yellow oxide here from your raw sienna, and you can mix it from your Hansa Yellow. So if you put out the full entire palette, 14 palette, and you keep it like this, if you ever want to go semi-transparent, you go like this. And if you ever want to go more opaque, you can just grab that. So there is that that you can do with that. So it gets those out here. The next one that is out, and again it is out as a benchmark color, is a pine green. I added pine green here into the basic palette again as a benchmark color. Is a shortcut color. It's a beautiful color. It is a very, very powerful, especially in the heritage line. It is more powerful than a lot of the other pine greens you find in a lot of other lines. We made it more powerful. We made it specifically as for to do this type of painting. It is a benchmark color here, and so it takes a lot of a yellow and a lot of blue to change it. It is a good intermediate green. So if I wanted to use this one as a green, as a basic for like some leaves, and if I want to go yellow green, I can go this way very quickly and go yellow green, very bright little yellow greens here, and I can go very cool. So if I go this way, I can go more blue greens, and I can have my tealy colors up here. We can go to my teal colors, my green colors, and into my yellow greens here. Very nice. And get a run very quickly. It's a medium green that gets you a run very quickly. And like we saw earlier, I can cool something down. Very nice. It was one of my favorite mixes into the Paint It Simply program is red violet and pine green. I love those two colors together. That gives me a very cool shadowy green. And then, of course, I have the warmer version of it over here, which is if I wanted to make a warmer green and the cooler green that you see there. The pine green, though, is a good variation. So if you're afraid of greens, and a lot of young artists are afraid of green, you have two ways to do it. Is you need to either mix up a base green here, which is these two greens here, which is these blue and this yellow here together, or you need to put out a benchmark pine green. And the pine green is a good one. It will not give you as much harmony as if you make the base green from here and here, because the green that you mix from phthalo blue and Hansa Yellow have a phthalo blue and Hansa Yellow in it. So they go with everything yellow on the palette and everything blue on the palette. They already go. But pine green is a separate pigment all by itself. And every time, remember what they say about clouding the eye. The more things that you add, then the more clouded your eye becomes. So, I mean, do I go to the 14? That's your call. A lot of people like the pine green. It's there for you. It's there in the advanced palette. I will paint with it. I'm going to be painting with this next week. That's one reason why I'm mixing up this palette right now, because I haven't used the 14 color palette over a year, and I didn't take care of my other one, and it dried up. So I'm mixing. That's what I'm doing with you right now, is I'm mixing this all up so I can do a paint. I'm about to do a 14 color painting with it. So I'm mixing it all up for you right now. So this is a benchmark color. You can add the yellow here to make a yellow green, add the blue here to make a blue green. You could add black or your base browns or your umbers, which we're going to show here in a minute, to make it a more toned version of it. Or you can cool it down and gray it down. Anytime that you add anything from this area of the wheel, you're going to make the green more toned. Okay? If I add this, I warm it. If I add this, I cool it, right? But anything, if this green is too bright for me, if I put out this green here and that green is too bright for me, then I ask myself right away, do I want to cool it? Do I want to warm it? I can keep it more neutral by even using this red here. I know that. That will gray it. See how that grays it? And doesn't change the temperature too much on it. But I can gray that baby right out just like this with just a little bit of that red into that one there too, and then cool it down completely over here next to that. And I love the cool colors that you get from this side of it here. I love to go down to those real cool darks tones that you have here. So why the pine green? Because a lot of artists out there use tones that are very similar to that. If you're a decorative painter, of course, you've seen that around forever and ever. You can go teal with it really easy. If you love teals, just add a little bit of blue. If you like light teals, add just a little bit of blue and a little bit of whites. And, of course, as you increase your blue, you get more teal color. So, you can find that. If you want to warm that up, you can add just a little bit of the red. If you want to cool it, you can add just a little bit of the red violet. Okay, got that. So pine green, again, it's there. It's a good benchmark color for you to have. Over to your blues. Two blues that we have. One that sits as a blue, it's basically a lighter blue of this. And I have it in the line basically because I do a lot of gouache painting and a lot of watercolor painting. And Cerulean Blue, which is our PB35, is a very, very popular pigment into watercolors. So we added that into this basic, and there were some artists like Couchois and stuff that painted a lot and would use the Cerulean Blue pigment. So that became, that's one reason why we have it in there, to do a lot of watercolors. If you don't want to use the cerulean, you can just take phthalo blue plus a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white, and you will make cerulean blue perfectly. It does it. The other one, an older one, is your ultramarine blue. And this is the oldest of the blues. This comes from the original stone lapis lazuli. And, of course, we'll add our little bit of extender here to those. Mix that up. And then mix those up. This ultramarine blue here, beautiful, beautiful tone. And, of course, it's changed. It was in the 1860s, was synthesized for the first time by a French scientist, and thus you see it sometimes named the French ultramarine. This is the PB29. This makes absolutely gorgeous violets and purples. And the only reason why I have it on the advanced palette is because it is a different blue than the phthalo, and you can, they look fairly close together. But if you take the phthalo here, put that out, and then you take the ultramarine blue here and you put that out, and then let's just add a little bit of white to both of these, you'll see the difference in the pigments now. This one is more of a blue-green, and this one over here, I've got to clean that phthalo out of that brush. This one's more of a blue-violet. So you'll see the difference between the two blues here. This is why this blue goes more towards the blue-violet here, because it is more of a blue-violet. And because it's more towards the violet, it gives you really pretty, pretty purples. So if you're going to do a painting that's really heavy in lilacs and purples and violets and red violets, you might consider replacing your phthalo blue out. Or if you have the 14-color palette, instead of painting a lot with the phthalo, paint over here with the ultramarine, and you'll get a beautiful run of purples and stuff, and that's what that one's really for. And again, the cerulean blue here makes beautiful skies, and it's beautiful into watercolors. It was, you get a certain amount of artists over time. Like when I study artists and I study their pigments over all the years, for example, Van Hyasen, they all want to do something new, and they all want to do something different. And, Van Hyasen comes along, Dutch painter, and in the middle part of the 1600s, he comes along and he really likes Naples Yellow. And so he starts doing a lot, becomes one of the first painters to really use a lot of Naples Yellow. Well, Naples Yellow is basically Hansa Yellow and yellow oxide and white. You can make it just almost flawlessly that way. But he became known for using a lot of Naples Yellow, whereas a lot of artists before him were using yellows called orpiments and real gars, which is very much like a yellow oxide, and a real gar, which is like a raw sienna. And so he did that to be a little bit different. And so I can emulate a lot of what they do just by our pigments. I don't have to go out there and have all these pigments. I don't have to go out there and buy all of these pigments. I can get basically the same thing. Some artists will use those because they become the fashionable thing to use. Just like cerulean blue. I say, cerulean blue. Is that really absolutely necessary? No, it's not absolutely necessary. It's a quick shortcut to a nice light blue blue-green color, used a lot in watercolor. If you're going to do a lot of things with it, if you're going to do a lot of colors, a painting with a lot of it leaning to that side, you might consider putting out on your color, some cerulean blue. If you want to get it, you can get it, like I say, from phthalo blue, Hansa yellow, and white. Will get you that color just almost precisely perfect that way. But that gives you those blues out there. Why again do I have them out there? The older blue, a fashionable blue that was used a lot, and between those three blues there, you've covered basically the industry. Prussian blue hue is just phthalo blue and black. That's how it's made. You don't need the Prussian blues. You don't need a lot of those other, French blues and everything that they're just mixes. These are the only three that you really need to really emulate or paint anything that you really want to get painted. And then the last couple that we go into is your two umber tones. You have two umber tones. You have the burnt umber tone, which we put up towards the red side because it's a warm tone, and it is slightly reddish, slightly orangish. And then we have the raw umber, which is a neutral tone. We put them in the center because they're neutrals. They're really without color. But this one sits slightly to the green side. This one slightly to the red side. And so you'll use this if you use these colors. I mean, we know the raw umber into the yellow here will turn your yellow slightly a little bit to the greenish. You'll see. So. And burnt umber will do it a little bit to that, not as fast as that. Burnt umber, very old traditional color. Like I say, it looks just exactly like our red and our black mixture. That was real close because it's real close to those being inside each other there. It's real close to that. But again, it's a beautiful color. If you're going to do a painting with a lot of real earthy tones, the burnt umber is warmer than the raw umber is. The raw umber sits slightly to the green side, so you know that this right in here paints a lot of your greens and yellows and everything. Beautiful colors, your blues, blue-greens, nice toning colors into the air. These guys right up here paint all of your orangey tones. So if you wanted to tone and warm this red, a little bit of the burnt umber in there, we'll just tone that and warm that up. Very, very nice. You want to orange it a little bit, you can go with the raw sienna. We'll orange it a little bit. This will orange it faster and a little bit brighter, okay, because it is a little brighter. This will orange it and brighten it up even faster yet, because it is a brighter color. So the palette, once you set your palettes up here like this, you can visually see, working through the palette here, here's my greens. Okay, and when I have my palette set up through here, let's say I put out a leaf. Okay, now I'm going to highlight that leaf. Let's go over here. Let's grab some yellow green. Oh, we got a beautiful highlight to our leaf over here. We're going to shadow it over here, so let's get it to a blue green. And then if we want to tone it and cool it, we can add a little bit of our red violet to there, make a beautiful tone there. If we want to warm this up on this side over here, tone this and warm this up, the slightest little bit of that red in there will tone that right down to that original kind of yellow green that we have here. You can work your wheel. You don't really need to know, even remember all the colors or exactly all the proportions or mixes or anything. If you put out a color here, if you put out this green and then you add some yellow to it, and if it's not quite yellow-green enough for you, then you just start adding more and more and more of this yellow-green over here until it starts becoming more yellow-green, until you find the yellow-green that you like. All of those work together. All of them work together. Why? Because you're using a limited palette of colors, okay? Not so much with the 14 as it does with the 6, but all of them go together. You could, instead of toning with the blue-green, you could toss in a little bit of your cerulean. This will give you a different colors of greens as well. See the slightly different run of the greens in there. Why? Because the color already has some white in it too. That's going to help you change. It's going to make the greens lighter. It's going to make everything appear a little bit different. So, do you need these shortcuts of the 14? Sometimes I use them, and I'm specifically teaching that. Sometimes in the Painted Simply, you'll see me teaching you specifically about a pigment such as the phthalo green yellow. And then sometimes, or the majority of the time, you're going to see me trying to get you to 6 colors, because the 6 colors is really where the masters of our decorative painting industry set. And they really do give you all the tools and all the colors necessary to make beautiful paintings. Okay, now with the last few minutes that we have remaining in the DVD, I'm going to go put these all off to the side. I'll come back here and I'll show you how do you paint a quick little demonstration of a flower warms and cools, working through the how does the palette actually work through it, and we'll even bring out my working palette over there. Okay, see you in a few minutes.